Gerby. Pull up to the scene, I feel like McLovin. I get it bumping, I get it jumping. I'm sipping compounds at the function. They just keep hating, I didn't do nothing. Wait, Gerby. My chopper is gooning, it's bussin'. I'm at the crib eating blueberry muffins. I was watching 9/11 on the TV while she was sucking. They blew up those towers, they were not bluffing. Alright, that's enough. Gerbert on them. Now, I'm somewhat of a party animal. When I arrive at the function, the entire energetic vibration shifts. I go crazy. I'm sipping good weed, alcohol. I'm really getting lit with the hose. I'm on that Molly, the Xan, the lean. To put it frankly, I'm just moving. And they don't like to see that nowadays. They do not like to see a white boy throw down. And it's changing. You know, back in the day, back in the 90s, when I'd go to a house party, I could just lose all inhibitions. You just go with the flow, the motion. You let the Lord take control of you. You lose yourself. But now, all these kids, they have these smartphones, this generation. And anytime you try to really get crunk, there's some weenie in the corner taking some video of you, showing it to the whole world. Oh, why is he running around punching all the hoes? Bro, sorry for party rocking. Can't even get lit no mo. You know, this generation really is just a bunch of beta males. No, but Zoomers, they barely even party. They do. You know, if you go to a college town, if you go to some cities, there's some stuff going on. But for Gen X, for boomers, for millennials even, it was like a very common occurrence, these high school house parties. The way I've heard about it is that there was never a shortage of them. The problem was like choosing which ones to go to. I've been to a few parties in my life, and okay, well here, let me pull up the post I'm talking about. This is from the Gen X subreddit. Were parties like this ever actually a thing? This is coming from a Zoomer asking Gen X questions. I love 90s and 2000s movies so much, and all of the teen movies have one of these party scenes. They look so fun. I'm Gen Z and have never been to anything like this. So is this a thing that just doesn't happen anymore, or is it Hollywood trying to make me hate my life more? This got a lot of attention on this subreddit. There's also an X post about it that was sent to me. This is the saddest thing I've ever read. Now, I've been to a few parties, which turns out might be like more than a lot of Zoomers, which is sad, but the experiences I've been to were like, they weren't like this. You know, like a 90s, 80s house party that would be depicted in a movie. And I kind of share this similar question. You know, I didn't know if things like this were sort of Hollywood embellishments or a little bit fake. Like, house parties happened, but, you know, the whole thing where the cops come and they're, you know, this like traditional American high school experience. Because if I watch something like Euphoria now, which is supposed to be a depiction of high school today, it's nothing like actual high school, right? And I'm sure there's some of that, but from the way these Gen X people are responding, yes, definitely was a thing. Absolutely. Every weekend growing up, there was a massive party at someone's house. You never went to a house party? There was one basically every weekend in my town. Someone's parents were always going away. My brother is a cop that patrols the same area. He used to party back in high school. He knows all the spots for outdoor keg parties and what suburban ranch subdivisions are perfect for large gatherings. Said it's been at least a dozen years since he's broken up a raging 80s-style keg party full of kids. Kids just don't party anymore. So I think the only place now that you could reliably find a party is a college campus, a place like a fraternity. But even then, these are probably different than they were back in the day. And also, they lack a fraternity college party now. It lacks the appeal that like a classic high school house party does. And this is not just anecdotal stuff that people are pointing out on social media. This is real. There's real data to support this. And someone sent me this article, Death of Partying in the USA, which compiles a lot of the evidence. Between 2003 and 2024, the amount of time that Americans spent attending or hosting a social event declined by 50%. For young people, the decline was even worse. Last year, Americans aged 15 to 24 spent 70% less time attending or hosting parties than they did in 2003. Face-to-face socializing has plummeted in the last 2 decades by about 20% for unmarried men and people younger than 25. The decline exceeds 35%, which might explain why these groups seem to have fewer friends than ever. And it's also true that Gen Z is doing things associated with partying, like drinking, way less. A 2023 survey found that the share of adults under the age 35 who say they ever drink dropped 10 percentage points in 2 decades. Alcohol tends to be a social drug, even for young people, so part of the decline in underage drinking could be related to less in-person socializing, said Koob. On average, the amount of time people spent with friends in person decreased from 30 hours a month in 2003 to 10 hours a month in 2020. All of this, the amount of, I shouldn't have to come read the data. People know this. The amount of the evidence and stats about all this crap is overwhelming. And I'm kind of seeing 2 different ways that people are looking at these trends. And one is to say that, well, this is good. This is good because the young people are not falling for the same traps of drugs and alcohol and party culture and casual sex and all this stuff. They're being good. They got their heads on straight or something. And partying, that's lame anyways. Like you're just, sitting around getting drunk, degenerate behavior. That's one angle I've seen. But the other angle is to say it's not like these young people are virtuously declining alcohol and partying. They just do not have social networks like people used to. There's just not the opportunity. They just don't be doing shit. And my position is that while sure you can say it's good that young people aren't doing these things, the reason why is very grim. Back to this X post. Parties are boring, just a bunch of people standing around and drinking. What's fun about that? And the original poster says, okay, never mind. This is the saddest thing I've ever read. House parties were the best. I honestly feel so sad if this isn't a thing for youth anymore. They aren't missing anything. They are missing everything. And the thing is, I don't really know. I haven't really been to a party like this. You know, the parties I rarely attended in high school, it wasn't like that. And I've been to some college parties, but I didn't find those enjoyable. So I have no idea. But you're looking at these people like, oh, I didn't miss anything. You're just standing around drinking. It seems like a bit of a cope. I mean, if they are how they were kind of depicted in these films, and that's just normal, like a fun, I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore. And it does seem like a great youth fun experience that just isn't happening because of social decay. I get how you could say that about something like going to the club, about broader party culture, but an old school house party, that's like a next level vibe. That's a different thing. It's more than just drinking and doing all this degenerate stuff. It's like communal and young people doing things. It's easy to look at something like this as a young person and just start feeling down because it's just not there anymore. You just feel like you're in a decaying place. Things are not getting better. Like you're just born in this empty, broken age. A lot of people's youth is just so empty nowadays. Even if they're like very social people. Parties like this, it's not like they never happen. They probably happen some places, some high school scenarios. But it's just they're very rare. And these used to happen everywhere, all of the time. Small towns, suburbs, cities. We do not live in the same country anymore. And the same thing is true with other Western countries. Yeah, I mean, people can cope, but stuff like this probably was very fun. It probably made youth enjoyable and way less empty. But it sucks, but it is what it is. Could be much, much worse. And I'm not here to complain about it. I'm really here to explain it. I want to dissect the reasons why. So the most obvious thing that people will point out, the people on these posts do it, is technology. They'll blame it on technology. The internet, the digital age, smartphones. And there's some truth to it. It's just not the main thing. But I'll talk about it first because, yeah, smartphones, the internet, it did change socialization forever. Young people can stay at home and go on the internet and be entertained without having to go out, seek experiences. When you go to a party, people will be on their phones now. Instead of engaging with the huzz because you're nervous, some guys will pull out and just, kind of frantically scroll on the weather app. Maybe you've seen those memes, those scenarios. People socialize differently. They're on Discord, they're playing games, they're on voice chats, whatever. And there's the whole thing where you could be recorded at all times. Everyone's too connected, so your inhibitions are higher. So this is what these type of people are saying. Parties don't get wild because anything stupid you do will be on TikTok before you even get home. Phones truly did destroy society. These parties used to be secret. You had to know where the house was at, be invited beforehand, or crash. No one will let their guard down anymore because everyone is filming. Cell phones destroyed all the freedom we used to have. Every weekend was an adventure. It's true that always having these smartphones can destroy the momentariness, the connection of social events now, especially for young people. But it's not really that young people are less social or more inhibited at these parties. It's that they aren't happening to begin with. Parties are not being thrown. So that's a very incomplete answer for why. And the whole thing about young people staying inside more because of the internet and socializing over the internet, this is true, this is happening. Young people are socializing on the internet in lieu of socializing in real life. But this being a reason for people not having parties anymore is a mix of cause and effect. So let me give you my theory. There's a famous study that you've probably heard of called Rat Park, and it's used to give a different angle on the psychology of addiction. When rats are placed in a cage by themselves with no other community of rats, and they are given 2 water bottles on each side of the cage, one with water and one that is laced with heroin or cocaine, the rat that is alone will continuously drink from the laced water bottle until it overdoses and dies. So this keeps on happening, right? You put the rat in the cage alone with the 2 bottles, it always goes over, it slurps from the crack bottle until it dies. So then to further test the hypothesis, what the researchers did is they put the rats in rat parks, which means they kept the same access to the bottles. The heroin water and the normal water were always accessible. But they added things for the rats to do, and they added multiple rats, a community, in the same cage. What they found was, even though the heroin water was constantly accessible, they could go get it at any time, and it would make them feel great. I mean, it has a very powerful reward system effect. It's heroin, but the rats didn't even drink it. They'd take a little sip to know what it was. They wouldn't go back to it because they had everything they needed. They had activities, they had the friends in the cage. So now you might know where I'm going with this. The addictive life-sucking stimulus is there. It could always be there. But if people were fulfilled, they would never turn to it. Similarly with the internet, in every house, there is a portal to everything. To anything you could look up, the information highway. You have it in your pocket. It's always there. But to the extent that it replaces normal socialization, it's because people were lacking that socialization to begin with. I've observed this many times in my life and other people's lives. When their social life gets better, when they start having a lot of things to do, they take a big step back from the internet. They still use it like it's everywhere, but they don't use it nearly as much, and to the extent that they do use it, they use it as an accessory to socialization rather than a replacement of socialization, which is a key difference. So Zoomers use the internet all the time for their community, for artificial community, because they never had community, not because they're rejecting a community for the artificial community. So this is why, in my assumption, using the internet as this boogeyman to explain away all of Gen Z's social problems, it doesn't make a lot of sense. These problems have existed before. It was documented by Robert Putnam and people like him. Sociologists were talking about this since the 90s, since before, the destruction of community in America. The internet is less a catalyst than it is an accelerant. Once they start using it, they can alienate themselves more, and the real world can become more distant from them. So when we're talking about this problem of Gen Z not having parties, when people just say, oh, it's the phones, it's all of this, that's wrong. It's a lack of community. So what then is the main reason why a lot of Gen Z didn't even know that a house party was a real thing? This is why these channels exist, People won't just talk about this in everyday life. So the one thing that is at the bottom of all of this, behind the internet, before the internet, in all of the research that I've done for all the videos I've made, is demographics. Now, when people talk, and I'm mostly talking about like birth rates, population pyramid, and when people talk about this, it's corny now because guys like Elon Musk rant about it and they're running around impregnating a bunch of bitches and then not talking to them or whatever. I don't know what's going on there. And they talk about it in a way it's like it continues civilization or whatever. Demographics is very underrated of a topic when we're talking about the whole loneliness epidemic, or like why Gen Z is not partying or any of this. None of these people on the internet are mentioning it when it is the primary factor. People have no idea the impact it has on socialization when you grow up in a geriatric society. It's not something as obvious as the internet that you could just blame easily, but when you see it, when you think about it for a little bit, you can't unsee it. So there are two aspects to this. There are less young people, period, and their family situations are different. Parents are having fewer kids and watching them, hovering over them much more. This is the phenomenon of helicopter parents. And of course, sure, the internet does assist parents in helicoptering their children because they can track them all the time using their phones. Like, you can't even sneak out of the house anymore, probably, because they're just tracking your ass. So on the first point, the average age of marriage during the baby boom was 20 years old. People married young. They had lots of kids in their early 20s. This group of people was the largest group of people born in the baby boomer generation. That's when everybody was having kids. So the whole culture, it basically follows them. When you're a baby boomer, everyone's young. Stuff is always happening. It's the spirit of youth. So during that time, yeah, you go around, there's parties everywhere. There's a bunch of young people doing things. There's bands, all these people forming bands, all these people, all these cultural movements, hippies. It was in the 70s when the birth rate dipped below replacement. And it did so frequently until the mid-2000s, where it finally dipped below completely, consistently. Before then, it went above for a little bit, went below. My dad's a boomer. He grew up in a pretty small town in Texas. We went to walk around his old neighborhood. I'm seeing these pictures. I'm hearing these stories about kids playing in the creek, kids running around yards playing football. All the stories he had when he was a kid. There were a few kids next door. They had a pet monkey. He's telling me these colorful stories about his childhood. We walk around his neighborhood now. It's a sunny day outside. It's bright. It's not school time. There's like one kid in the front yard shooting a basketball all by himself. And it's not that all the other kids in the neighborhood are inside gaming and gooning. It's that there aren't any fucking kids. Lonely ass kids sitting here. And I'm having this like weird experience, genetic memories of seeing a bunch of kids in the 60s playing in the ponds, dozens of kids all over the neighborhood running around. Kids now grow up, and even Zoomers grew up in neighborhoods where they're the only young person there in the neighborhood. I just realized in all my, like, whenever I go to Thanksgiving, whenever I have these family gatherings with, like, the main, you know, you have your main family and then you go see your cousins and stuff. I'm the only person in my age bracket. Like, I was the only person who was in my teens, now my 20s, whenever I go to Thanksgiving, to Christmas. Whenever we have a family reunion, there will be some people my age, you know, where people from all over the country come together. And that's not too uncommon for a lot of Zoomers. But Boomers, you know, my parents have tons of cousins their age. You really have to think about it, what this does to your socialization. People don't get it. People are growing up with fewer siblings, with fewer young people around them in neighborhoods, in their local community. A lot of kids born now, you know, the people who are trying to pull off the whole trad thing, those kids aren't even going to have cousins. When you think about the classic house party of an 80s and 90s movie, that's classic American culture. Youth is culture. If there's not people making families, having more children, the culture is dying. You know, a lot of times when you talk about this, people just think you're weird. Oh, birth for women. Oh, you just want more kids running around. A kid. But use your fucking head. People do not become socialized properly when they are an only child. They grow up in a neighborhood with no kids. Both of their parents are working. You just send them to school, ask them to fend for themselves. You come home, and they don't have any community. They have to use the iPad. Think about what happens. Humans are social creatures, but you have to be socialized properly. You can't just throw a kid in the fucking jungle and he comes out and he's suddenly able to riz the hose. This isn't fucking Tarzan or whatever. School is a hostile environment. You know, these lonely only children, when they get sent to school, they become antisocial. Because often the very first thing that happens in school is, like, you gang up and pick on the bottom rung. It's just human nature. It is what it is. Like, when you're socialized with other young people, not just thrown into a school, but in a community with your family, with your cousins, with your extended community, it's a more warm, welcome environment, so you learn how to interact with people. Here's to put it simply. Community comes from family. All these people talking about a return to community, wanting to build communities, have community, third places, da-da-da. You're just rejecting the foundational sociological, like, facts. Community comes from family. No family, no community. So a lot of kids come from divorced parents. You know, when you talk about a house party, it's like parents that are doing well, they have houses. That's one thing. Like, people owned houses. A lot of Zoomers are children of divorce and dysfunction and stuff like that. They don't have, like, a home that their parents own, and they leave for a trip so they can go invite all their... None of the ingredients were there. There aren't enough young people. There's not the cultural, familial, social fabric. It's just gone. Demographics and birth rates, it's not like it's not a weird thing to talk about. I'm not talking about like a political thing about the future of our empire or whatever. It's already had massive implications for the socialization of young people. It's the primary reason. What I'm positing is that if the average age in America was closer to 20 than what it is right now, 40, internet, no internet, it wouldn't matter. There would be shit going on. There would be parties. We wouldn't be having this conversation. But the thing is with Gen Z is that it's kind of a hybrid generation. Some Gen Z kids have boomer parents, older parents who are well connected. Some Gen Z kids have a lot of siblings, and, you know, like, their lives are pretty normal and it's working. But when you get into Gen Alpha is very small. This is where you're really going to start to see it. Gen Alpha are growing up in neighborhoods where they are the only kid within a fucking 5-mile radius. They have no siblings. Boomers, Gen X, millennials, they are better socialized because the boomers, that's obvious. That was the baby boom. But then a lot of the boomers' kids were Gen X millennials. When you start getting into Gen Z, it's like there are some boomer parents, but you're getting into the younger generations that are birthing Generation Z. You need to think about it because you've just grown up in this time. When a boomer 20-year-old walked into a bar, he's seeing a bunch of other 20-year-olds. When you walk into a bar now, if I walk into a bar, everyone's fucking elderly. This is what it means to have a dead culture, to have a decaying culture. Families and children need to always occur, always be formed, in order for the social fabric to continue. And they haven't, so it's not. Oh, it's the smartphones that were mass adopted in the mid-2010s. No, use your fucking head. It's just like it's an incomplete analysis of the situation. People with healthy social lives are not taken over by the internet. They don't need to. It's the rat park. When they have what they need, they don't use the internet. People use the internet because they don't have what they need, and that's because it was fucked when they were born. And things become less conducive to the youth. Parents helicopter their kids. Dude, I knew so many kids. I was kind of one of them, but it wasn't that bad for me. Their parents just helicopter the shit out. Dude, they couldn't have sleepovers. They couldn't go outside. And they have no siblings or one sibling. And it's like, what the fuck else are they supposed to do but be inside on the internet? Yeah, and people, that's a classic thing. Like, I sneak outside to go skateboard around the neighborhood. My mom finds out. She gets mad. And then it's like, okay, so you can't do that. You can't go outside. And then she also gets mad at me for using the internet and playing games. All right, I guess I'll just lay on the ground. That's cool. It's unbelievable. But anyways, that's enough of that. Now let's end it on a different note, as I try to do. Look, yeah, America's not as good as it was for the boomers, for Gen X, for even the millennials. Now, they try to throw their hats in with Gen Z. I know the economy wasn't great for millennials either yet. The boomers, after that, it kind of went down for everyone. But millennials trying to throw their hats in with Gen Z, you need to cut it out. Like teenagers in the early 2000s. Oh, sounds so bad. Even if you're like a late millennial, you were in college in 2016 or something. What? That's a great year. My teen years, the pandemic. Shut the fuck up if you're a millennial. Look, I'll acknowledge this, you're not the boomers or whatever, but bro, even 10 years ago seems like a paradise now. But this is the thing, I'm dooming again. It's hard not to doom. I really don't believe in dooming. I think that's a bad thing to do. I try to be detached. I'm just saying what's going on. You got to know, but you also got to be responsible and control your own reality. You get what I'm saying, Holmes? So here's the cope I'm going to end off with. It's not really cope, it's the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. Yeah, it's not great for Zoomers. It's because we're experiencing a decline, okay? So that's the kind of where the general pessimism comes from, is you feel like you're in the midst of a decay, a decline. But things could be so much worse. Like, it's bad for us, bad compared to what? Oh, we didn't have house parties, we didn't have fun. Children are getting blown up, they're getting trafficked, all sorts of stuff's happening all around the world. So you have to understand what you have and be grateful no matter what. Be grateful to be alive. But when you're in the midst of this decline, it used to bother me, but it eventually forced me to believe in something more. The truth of the matter is that millennials, Gen X, boomers, they were able to believe this self-destructive shit and be atheists because their lives were good. They had the house parties. They could do stuff. They grew up in the 20th century America, which was a great place. The post-World War II 20th century America. And now you're experiencing the decline of that. And if you don't live in this normalcy bias weird shit where boomers try to convince you or try to tell you you're still in the 90s, like you just go get a job, get a wife, get a house, and everything works. When you break that illusion and you see what's happening, you see the decline. And this is just my opinion at the end here. You can take it or leave it. When the true nature of human life, as it has been for most of human history, is revealed, which is suffering, which is, struggling to survive even. When things get down there, you can't afford to not believe in something greater anymore. So then what are you here for? You have to consider it because it's not fun. It's never been fun for me. Maybe it was for millennials. Oh, we're at the house party. Oh, Gen X. Woo, poppin'. Yeah. Not us, brother. You have to believe you were born here for a reason, at this time for a reason. If life's just about the fun, the friends, the material success, the hobbies, all of it, this was taken from Gen Z and definitely from Gen Alpha, like before we were born. So you can't think that's what life's about. You have to think it's about something more. Shit gets hard, you gotta find God. The good, fun, boomer life, that's not here for Gen Z. So there has to be another reason why you're alive. In my mind, in my life, I simply do not have the luxury of not believing in something like that. Because it's just been going downhill since I was born. There's no hope for I don't see there's real hope for the future, but there's hope if you believe in something greater than the material. That's the only, at this point, that's the assurance I can offer. I can't be like, oh, things are gonna get better. It doesn't matter if they get better. This is you gotta believe there's always a reason for you here. There's always moves you can make to do what you gotta do. Fulfill your purpose. You have to believe you have a purpose. You can't be fully attached to this world and stake your happiness on it. People in the West will be like, oh, there's children dying and starving. What good God would allow that? It's like, well, they believe in God because they have to. You can't just be born into that and then think, oh, I'm here to just get fucking blown up and that's my life because I'm just atoms. No, they have to. There's a reason for their suffering. There has to be. Otherwise, who fucking even cares about anything? Why would I even care to do anything if that's not true, if that's not the case? Anyways, I didn't mean to get theological or religious at the end. That's not what this channel is about, but that's the only way I can end this positively. You can't stake it in the material because shit is declining. You can't stake your happiness in it. It's not fun. We're not the millennials, Gen X, boomers. It's not, woo, party, rock and roll. Shit could get real, bro. You don't think shit could get real? Anyways, peace out. That's enough. Love y'all.